Well, welcome back. If you've been with us before, or if this is your first time, welcome to the Destined to Thrive series. This is our final episode, final session, number 6 out of 6. And today what we're going to do is we're going to bring it all together. We're going to talk about how you bring everything together to achieve extraordinary success and fulfillment. Now, my team and I were reflecting back on this series and the experience that we've had over the course of the past couple of weeks that we've been doing these. And we are just so grateful for the messages that we have received from you directly or on social media. Our intention was to create some positive ripple effects, if you will, that would make a difference in people's lives. And it's clear to me from the conversations that we've had that the conversations that you are having with people in your lives are making a difference. And so we are really grateful for your participation, your attention, and we want to make sure that we sort of bring this together in a way that really results in not just inspiration, but some action and some results, and ultimately a different experience. Again, I want to acknowledge that today we live in a world that is really consumed by a lot of stress about whether we're going to survive, whether we're going to survive economically, whether we're going to be healthy, we're going to be safe. And I don't want to disregard any of that. So if this is your first time joining us, please understand this is not about sort of disregarding or minimizing the concerns that we have. It's just that we know that the rest of the world is just talking about surviving and all of that. And we wanted to make sure that we create kind of a break from that and say, look, the only way to really survive, if you will, in a meaningful way, is to set your sights on something more exciting in the future and get yourself and others excited and energized. And that way, while you're dealing with the immediate issues that this current situation brings, at least you have hope for a brighter future. Now, again, some of the logistics of the call, you know how it goes. Most of you have been here before. So you can submit your comments through the chat box. You can submit your questions. I would encourage you to do that. We're going to make this session a lot more interactive. This is not a lot of downloading things, but I'm going to ask for volunteers in a moment to talk to us about the transformation blueprint. I shared that in the last session, and many of you have responded by actually taking action on that. Now, if you haven't, don't feel bad. This is not a quiz. This is not like you should have done that. Wherever you are is okay. But I am grateful that some of you have really gotten in action. I actually received a couple of your transformation blueprints, and I have to say it's a fabulous, fabulous start. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you if you're willing to engage in a conversation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to unmute your line, and we're going to just talk instead of putting everything in chat. Everybody else is welcome to submit their comments and questions in chat. But if you volunteer and I pick you, I'll pick as many people as I can today. We may not get to everybody, but I would appreciate that conversation so that as I'm coaching one person, my intention is that everybody else is going to also get something out of it. So again, as usual, if you have any technical difficulty, please send a message to Naveed, and Nassim is also on the call, and they are monitoring the chat and Q&A, that sort of thing. By the way, you can also, whether it's chat or Q&A, you can submit those anonymously as well, and that's perfectly fine. So once again, let's just very quickly kind of take a look at what this series has been all about. We started with making sure that in order for you to make anything extraordinary happen, you have got to sort of know what's going on with you. And there are so many autopilot type of processes that are going on with us constantly. We're bombarded with information. We make them mean something. We refer to our experience in the past. Then we kind of make the worst of that situation. Then we drag it with us and we put it in our future. Then we live into it. And so if you are in the default mode and if you are in autopilot mode, nothing good is going to come out of that. In fact, I would submit that nothing great that you have ever accomplished in your life has ever been done because you were in autopilot mode. Like if I was in autopilot mode, you know what? I didn't feel like getting up in the morning and going to school, or sometimes getting up and going to work. I didn't feel like taking care of my kids or working hard and all that. So if you're in autopilot mode, nothing good comes out of it. It's only when you're intentional, as you have been. You've been intentional about getting on these webinars because you're interested in some perspective or something. And I'm truly appreciative for that. And so it's all about being intentional. And so now when you're intentional, there's still some steps that you've got to take. And so we talked about the characteristics of a vision that you can create along with your folks, whether it's your family or your team, your organization, and come up with a vision that truly inspires people and energizes people. It's not about just solving problems, but it's about a brighter future that we can all get excited about. Then we talked about how you can actually communicate that in a way that causes people to see themselves in that future, see something in it for themselves. We talked about the importance of making it easy for people to get involved. So that they can do their part and not feel the sort of peer pressure of just kind of hanging back, but feel the opposite peer pressure of getting involved and making some things happen and getting over that tipping point, getting the organization over that tipping point where it becomes real easy for us to make things happen. Then we sort of discussed the importance of fanning the flames, if you will, the positive things. And when you see something positive, how you can really make sure that you elevate it and you bring it to everybody's attention. And also by the same token, if there are some behaviors that are counter to where you want to go, you've got to really deal with that as well. So we talked about some systems you can put in place. We talked about the mindset and behavior of leaders to do that. But I also know that, regardless of how much effort you put into creating this vision and getting people involved and all of that, the journey is always going to feel challenging. If you're up to something and you want to make something great happen at a time when everybody's just talking about surviving, and here you are, you have this vision of the future, people are going to look at you like, what the heck is wrong with you? We're about to drown over here. We're about to whatever. And so this is something that you got to be aware of. You are going to experience some resistance. You're going to experience some amount of pushback and that sort of thing. So no matter how excited you are, how excited other people are, this journey, all journeys that have a happy ending, most of them don't really feel like it along the way. So you're going to have some challenges. And so today what I want to do is I want to really kind of bring all of that together and coach you through the process that it takes for you to actually put it all into action. And the way you put it in action, I'll give you the the punchline up front, if you will, that the way that you can make the most out of what you've gotten out of this webinar or any other learning experience is not necessarily to analyze and overanalyze and think about it and put these quotes in front of you or whatever. It's to get in action. You see, knowing stuff doesn't really make a difference. We've already talked about that. Even believing in what you know doesn't make a difference. I could know that exercise is good for me. I could even believe that it would make a difference for me. Unless I get up and actually get in action, it is just not going to work. And so today we're going to talk about this very specific tool that I shared with you as a way to shape our thought process around what it takes to actually just go ahead and jump in and get in action. Speaking of getting in action, I've got to tell you this story. So when I was growing up, when I was in high school or even middle school, I never could run very fast or very far. I would just get winded and all of this. And I remember this experience. I went to, my parents took me to a doctor, and the doctor checked me out and said, look, this kid is just not going to be a runner. So in fact, I remember that during PE sessions and all of this, I had this slip that said I didn't have to participate, and they gave me a passing grade. And so this is something that I grew up with. It's like I had this image of myself that I cannot run, right? And so at some point in my adult years, I decided, you know what? I talk about breaking through these barriers and all this kind of stuff. I'm going to do this. I'm going to become a runner. So what I did was I went out and bought the best book. I researched it, the best book on running. And this was a great book. I mean, it was talking about nutrition, you know, how to get from couch to 5K, this and that, all of this kind of stuff, right? And I mean, I read this book. I would put it next on my nightstand, and I would look at it every day and all of that. But as it turned out, even though everybody said this was a really great book, it turned out it was no good. Like, it did not make a runner out of me, right? So you get the point, right? As it turns out, you actually have to get out and run. Okay, now the success story I want to share with you on that is, it was, I think probably about a year later, where I had given up on, like, I even read the book and it didn't make a runner out of me. It was Father's Day, and my daughter Nasim gave me a very unusual Father's Day gift, which turned out to be a really fantastic gift. Well, she signed me up for a 5K. Now for you, that may not be a great thing. If you are a marathon runner, you're like, 5K, that's nothing. For me, it was like, wow, it was like flying to the moon. It was like 5K, I'm gonna run a 5K. So she signs me up. She bought me another book, which was also very helpful, but she's like, look, on this day, you're gonna run in this 5K. Then at that point, it was like, okay, I can't just read the book and learn stuff. I gotta get out there. And so lo and behold, I put it on my calendar. I was traveling extensively. It was really hot. It was summertime. It was in South Carolina, all of this kind of stuff. I remember going for those runs. And you know what? I ran my 5K. And I got there before they picked everything up. I wasn't the last guy. I actually did okay. I was in the top like 30% of the people, you know, in terms of time. And so what I'm saying to you is, look, if you put something out there and you boldly declare something, you begin to get into action, you not only achieve some great things, but you begin to relate to yourself very differently. And this is why it's important for you to get into action, okay? Now, to get in action, you've got to be inspired by something. We've already talked about that. Inspired by some outcome. And so therefore, boldly declaring is the first step. You know, so the subtitle of my book says, boldly declare, courageously pursue, and abundantly achieve the extraordinary. So boldly declare a future. So if you have not boldly declared something, I would encourage you, just on this call, you can do it. Write something down for yourself. What are you going to do? What do you want to accomplish? And as long as it really involves some amount of stretch for you, it's fine. It doesn't have to be end world hunger or anything like that. As long as it makes you a little bit nervous and it stretches you, boldly declare something. And this is the first creation before you actually get in action and make it happen, right? So everything is created twice, once in somebody's mind and then in physical reality. And so this first creation is so important and so vital to the second creation. Now, the next thing is this whole thing of around courageously pursue. Courageously pursue means I'm going to get out of my own head. I'm going to say I'm the one in the context of that thing we want to do. And it's not about me. So I'm not going to worry about being ridiculed. I'm not going to worry about failing. I'm not going to worry about getting credit. I'm not going to worry about my own stuff. It is not about me. I'm giving myself to a cause greater than myself, right? And so you'll be amazed how much courage you will all of a sudden find within yourself if it's not about you. You see, we take all kinds of action toward the things that we're really, really committed to. Now, there's a cycle, there's a model that, in fact, Naveed and I have created. I want to share this with you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. This model here is kind of a virtuous cycle that you ought to be aware of, okay? And that is the first thing that you want to do is get clarity. You know, at a time like this, particularly when there's a lot going on and we're bombarded with bad news and we're projecting it into the future and all of this kind of stuff, there's so much noise. And this is why it's so much more important today for us to act as coaches for each other. Listen to each other, provide coaching, provide clarity. When somebody comes to me for coaching, the first thing that I do is I help them sort through the noise so they have some clarity and quiet down the noise and bring out the points that actually make a difference for them so that they can actually focus. So once you have that clarity, what is it that you're going to focus on? And here again, it's important for you to not just shift your focus and jump around. You may have multiple priorities, and I completely understand that. But if you really declare a particular transformation that you want to cause, you want to focus. You want to get real clear, what is it that you're going to get done by when, and keep your focus on that. Fully committed to this cause? Or are you just saying that you're going to do it if it's convenient? And so what's important here is if you declare your commitment and you say, I'm 100% committed, I'm all in, then you get in action. But then you recognize that the road is not going to be all that smooth. You need resilience. We talked, I believe it was last time, about how to preserve your resilience. What are some things that you can do so you can remain resilient? But again, I'm going to harp on this word action, because what happens is every one of these quadrants, every step of the way, you have to take action. If you're trying to get clarity, it's not a passive undertaking. You've got to actively do something. It could be that you seek some coaching. It could be that you meditate. It could be that you write down some things that are going on in your head. It takes action to get clarity. Focus, that takes action, right? Because you got to brainstorm, you got to bounce some things off of somebody else. You've got to kind of, again, clear your head of those other distractors, and you've got to make some specific decisions. I would suggest to you that you ought to communicate that to others, because when you're falling off the wagon and whatnot, they can help you, if you get off track, to get back on track. Commitment is an ongoing thing. If you're committed to something, but you're not in action, let me tell you something, you're not committed. Okay, you may want that outcome, but you don't want to bring it about. And being committed means you are willing to get in action. So take action. And then the resilience piece. What do you need to put in place to make sure that you anticipate all of these different things that are going to cause drama for you, and they're going to take you out of the game? And how are you going to counteract those? And so this entire thing. Now, the final component of this model, extremely important, is during this entire time, you'll do much, much better if you're plugged into a community of like-minded people. And by that, I don't mean people who are clones and they all think the same way. When I say like-minded people, I'm talking about people who are thinking about, they have a growth mindset, and people who are thinking about transformation, people who are thinking about constantly elevating each other up, as opposed to just commiserating and that sort of thing. So on this call, we have a community. We've had a large number of people who have signed up, who've come to different sessions. And one of the things that we are going to continue to do is get in touch or stay in touch with this community. And if you choose to stay connected with us, we want to make sure that we continue to serve you in ways that are meaningful to you. So this model here, which there's a lot more to be said about this, but I wanted to at least kind of preview this with you, is extremely important for any of us to say, look, where am I on this? And by the way, there's no end to this, right? This is not a straight line and you get to the finish line. This is a circle that you keep going around, because the second you that whole resilience challenge shows up, guess what? You need some clarity. You got to renew your focus. Am I committed? Am I staying resilient? staying in action, tapping into the community. So this is extremely important. And one of the tools that I've shared with you last time is the transformation blueprint. And so this is, again, something that's in my book, The Transformative Leader, but I wanted to share that with you so that we can take it for a test drive. And this is where we get into sort of the coaching part of this conversation, because look, you may have a tendency, and again, I'm not making you wrong if you haven't done anything with that. I absolutely understand. Who am I? I don't know what you got going on in your life, so I'm not making you wrong for that. But what I will caution you on is this, that sometimes we just wait for the conditions to be right for us to do something and take some action, okay? I'm guilty of that just like anybody else. I put a little post out on social media the other day. I said, look, I realized that all those things that I used to say I would do around the house if I had time, many of them have still not gotten done. Why? Because time was not the constraint. For me, even though I can still say, you know what, I'm really busy, I still don't have a lot of time, but really, really, if you want something, you're going to make it happen. If you don't want to do it, you'll find an excuse. So the same is true with creating a transformation in your life. Creating a transformation in your life is completely optional. You know, it's entirely up to you. And you have conditions for that. Say, look, one day when I get this crisis over with, when I do this or whatever, then I get to do this. And I would encourage you to not think that way. Just jump right in. And this transformation blueprint is a great opportunity. If you take it for a test drive, if it doesn't turn out to be exactly the way you wanted it, then don't share it. But you know what? Some of the ones that have been shared with me, man, some of them are really, really great. And others are a great, great start. And so I want to open the floor up here to see if we have anyone who is willing to participate in this conversation with us right now. If you could just put it in the chat box. And what I'd like to do, I have the transformation blueprint up here so you can see it. But I would like to see if anybody would like to participate in this conversation. And the way I'd like to do this is go ahead and either let me know directly via chat or reply to everyone. And then what I'll do is I'll call on you, and I'm going to make an attempt to unmute you. Yeah, so Amy, thank you so much. Amy is on, so I'm going to say allowed to talk. Amy, can you say something?
Good morning.
Oh, Amy, great. We can hear you. Fantastic. Okay. Thank you so much, Amy, for participating. So what do you got? How would you like, how can I support you right now?
So I've got a start of the transformation blueprint. I'm still a little bit early in my process, but I would love to just share a little bit and get some feedback, as always.
Sounds great. And I would encourage everybody else to just, don't tune out if the particular transformation that Amy is working on is not similar to yours or is not exactly the same, because the concepts we're going to talk about are very much applicable. So let's see what kind of coaching you can get out of that. So Amy, go ahead, please.
Okay. So for the first question, in what area are you committed to creating a transformation? And so just in the grand scheme of things, I work in HR at an organization. And so I'm committed to creating a transformation in the career journey of our employees. Okay. So I kept that pretty broad.
Yeah.
Now the second one, what bold future are you declaring? Mm-hmm. What will it look like? So the statement that excites me is to be known as a company where dreams come true. And so that statement is much broader, obviously, than just like a professional career journey. But it also hits that mark, like you say, it should make you feel uncomfortable, both in selling it to others or, all the different things. So what that might look like, some of my initial thoughts are, if we're known as a company where dreams come true, where we will help our employees to dream big, kind of like, exactly what you do, Amir, just help them get bigger and bigger, almost more confidence to actually articulate those bigger goals. It should be something that they feel is personalized and unique to them, helping them understand and articulate what drives them. And it can be personally, it can be professionally. It doesn't have to be focused on a job. Where we can help our employees kind of see the path or build a bridge between where they are now. Like you say, we have to start with like that "you are here" sign. No judgment, just where are you and where do you want to go? Like think far down the road, not just the next step. And then help kind of build a little bit, at least the first step of that bridge. And again, where the future does not have to sit in an organization's walls. Like it can be, far outside of a career goal. And then there's just a couple other things like about that, but that's my bold future that I'm declaring.
I tell you what, I absolutely love it. It's like, you know what, who wouldn't want to work for a company where dreams come true, right? It's so simple and yet so powerful. It's so memorable, right? And then you just put meat around the bones. And the way you actually, when we talk about who are some of the key people and what are some of the things that you're going to go do with this, it's like really, if you're deliberate about these questions and you really work through them, you say, look, you know what, who are some of the people that want to get energized? And how actually do I energize them? Let's get to know a little bit more about them to figure out what it is. This is not about manipulating people into something, but speaking their language so they can see what that world makes available for them, right?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that piece actually, I would love some advice, simply because the scope right now is everyone. And in my organization, we have all different levels, different types of employees, from entry level, hourly, all the way up to office jobs and things like that. So as I'm like doing my due diligence and trying to really learn who these groups of people are, where they are, it seems to almost be a bit overwhelming. Because everyone is in a different place. Everyone's, say, goals or dreams are different. What drives them is different. And so that number 4, I think, is really where I am not stuck, but just kind of like, I don't see the path right now because it's too big.
Yeah, no, it's so great that you asked that question, because it's not totally clear from the question, right? So let me explain this. So the way I look at it is, of course, if you want this to be a workplace where dreams come true, you want that to apply to everybody. Ultimately, you want everybody to have that experience. But this key people that I'm talking about is, who are some of the early adopters and the early majority? Who are some people? And generally speaking, I caution against this being a certain layer of the organization. Sure, leadership needs to be bought in and all of that. But a lot of times the way I've done this is, when I get an idea like this, I begin to casually talk to people about it. Like, hey, wouldn't it be great if this was a place where dreams came true? What do you mean? You might get some looks or whatever, but at the end of the day, some people are going to bite. Some people are going to, wow, that sounds so exciting. And they want to know more. They want to know how to get involved. So I would start with identifying 5 or 6 people who could be sort of your mastermind, if you will. This may not be a formal sort of a team. It may not be sanctioned and recognized by the organization, but it's like, look, we're kindred spirits. We have a dream. We want to make it happen. And then begin brainstorming with those people to say, okay, how can we increase this circle and get this understanding and energy out there? And then you begin to formalize some things to actually make it happen. So these key people, you're talking about a handful of people who could be kind of your mastermind group. And so that's where I would start.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's a great idea because there's a lot of different folks who can represent different voices. So, and then I would say about as far as I've gotten is number 5.
Okay.
5, 6. So obviously I'm collecting all the complaints as I am talking to people. You know, everybody, I think it's easier sometimes when people are just thinking about something to see what's wrong. So I've got quite a bit on what we don't do as well as we should, or, you know, things like that. But if, you know, I don't know the top barrier to progress, I would say there's 2 things that are standing out to me right now. One is that everybody has an opinion, and everybody, this type of topic, like career journey, and is it fair, or is it equitable, or, you know, how people get advancement. It also, I've noticed, has an emotional aspect to people. So it's like a really charged opinion on certain topics. Sure. And I've had conversations on the same topic with different people where they were just completely on different sides of that coin. So I think that is going to be an interesting part of this as I go forward. But the thing that I would say in my mind is my barrier right now, or where I'm just don't have it figured out, is a lot of the feedback right now focuses on, you know how you say, like, get out of problem solving mode or change mode and get into transformation mode. So that's why I say, oh, let's make dreams come true. Well, most of the feedback I'm getting is like, we should have this process, or we need a better tool. And it's a lot of foundational pieces that absolutely, I agree with all of it. All that work needs to be done. But I fear that is not a vision that people will get energized by, because just what we have to do foundationally, connecting processes and, you know, upgrading how we do coaching and expanding opportunities, all of that work is part of this. And it needs to be done. But in order to get that work done, I need to mobilize so many different teams that I think I'm kind of just stuck in, I've got this bigger vision that we want to get to, but there's so much, almost like, it's not task work, it's like little or bigger projects that have to foundationally be put in place to get there.
And so I think the points that you've brought up, again, I would encourage everybody else. I hope you've really been paying attention, because I really believe, because I've heard this from a lot of other people as well, this is probably applicable to many people. So there are a couple of points I want to mention on this. First of all, this persistent complaint, you got to start with yourself, right? And it's good that you've kind of done some sensing to see what complaints other people have. This question really has to do with, what persistent complaint do you have? Now, I know that you are relatively new in your organization, and so you may not have a lot of complaints. You may be enthusiastic and ready to jump and make it happen. But generally speaking, if you've been in a place for a long time, you've tried some things a few times, you have a few complaints. You know what? If my boss supported me, if I had more resources, if these knuckleheads did this or whatever. So those are the complaints that you want to really, and I'm speaking to everybody, you want to really be straight with yourself on, to say, look, these are my complaints. And then what you want to do is you want to take those steps that it takes to get over your own complaints. Now, it is important to understand other people's complaints, and this comes to your other point, and I want to make sure that everybody understands this. Look, people are, everybody is not going to be a visionary. So if you are being a visionary and you're bringing a transformative idea, you're going to get some pushback, or even if you don't get pushback, you're just basically people are going to try to pull you into just that mix of, yeah, we got to solve this problem, we got to solve that problem. I mean, when I declared at some point that we're going to be showcase of excellence, when we were the worst of the worst in terms of our results, guess what? People looked at me like I had 2 heads, right? And so it's up to you to elevate. But here's a trick I will share with you. You've got to wrap what people need in what they want and give it to them. You cannot say, if they have an immediate concern and they want that problem solved, you cannot push back on that, say, no, you got to think bigger about this. Because what they need is that bigger transformation. But what they want is this thing. So the way I would present this is I'd get into their world and understand their concern and then connect that to, wouldn't it be great? You know, I'd spend some time with them and saying, look, here's some of the things that we can do and all that, but wouldn't it be great if we worked in a workplace that had this system and this process and this capability in place so that this would never be an issue? So make believers out of them by tapping into what's really important to them in the short term. So this is something I would encourage you to do, Amy, consider doing, and as well as others. But thank you for sharing, Amy. Any other final points you want to make on your
No, other than just to thank you for having me as part of this group. I could literally join you, Amir, like twice a year or more, because I'm always in a different place and these things just always apply in a new way. So
thank you so much. And I know you have been victimized by my sessions many, many times. So
I love it.
no, thank you so much for participating and participating in this coaching conversation as well. Thanks so much, Amy. Now let's go to Jagan. So Jagan. Not working, and it may be on my end.
Okay, you just froze for a few seconds.
Oh, I did. Okay, so
yeah, Amir, can you hear me now? This is Jagan. Good morning.
Hey, Jagan. Good morning. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. How about you?
I'm good, thank you. Hey, thanks for your willingness to participate. So, what do you got? How can I help?
So I've given my first shot at it. This is not perfect in any means, but this is my first go around. I haven't really put a lot of thought into it. I just want to download what's in my mind.
Yeah.
Trying to get through it. On the transformation blueprint. So I want to work on my softer skill set a little bit. This is something that I have never attempted. I shouldn't say never attempted. I've attempted it, but rarely if I had really have to.
Okay.
Being a leader, I need to do this more often. One of the things I have is on the first question is to have the courage to really have the tough conversations. A lot of times I try to avoid the conversations because either how would it be perceived or how would it be taken? Can I handle the conflict? So sometimes I totally avoid having that conversation.
Yeah.
And because there is pluses and minuses on either side. We don't want to encourage that culture of not having that tough conversation, either being a leader. So that's what I'm committed to have the courage to have tough conversation.
Yeah, and that's actually, I want to mention that this transformation doesn't always have to be about a hard number result. It could be about an aspect of your culture, which you want to create, which in this case, you're actually starting with yourself.
Absolutely.
So yeah, Jagan, as you look through, and I'm looking at your form right now that you sent me. I appreciate you sharing that. If you look through this, what would be the challenge that you're, as you went through this, what are a couple of questions that you have that you came across that we can provide some coaching on?
So my first thing is, how do you overcome the inner stumbling block, right? So we talked about a couple of strategies, and I appreciate Amy sharing in the previous one as well. I tried to get the nuggets of getting into the action, and the model that you put up today, it really makes my mind wrap around these things as well.
Okay.
Having the clarity and taking action, right? So you can't just always think about, will it turn out right? Will it come out right? I think that provided some clarity for me. I had that question, but then you just showed it on the screen as well.
Yeah, so you want to know, how do you actually overcome this inner dialogue that's holding you back? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, and so the thing I would tell you is, look, it's always about the pain and the pleasure of any action that we choose to take or not, right? So we always sort of make the potential consequence of having that tough conversation to be so big. And we say, look, what if it doesn't go well? What if I offend the person? What if they don't like me and this and that? But keep in mind, all of that is about you. If you truly are there to make a difference for somebody, then you're going to do what it takes. And if you truly know that if somebody's life is in danger, you're not thinking about yourself. You're saying, yeah, I got to go tell them that, you know, don't drink that. There's poison in there. And you're not sitting there thinking, oh, geez, what am I going to say? So my suggestion to you is this: focus on the rewards of this and what's in it for that person. And the second that you think about yourself, you're making it about you. And the other thing is, look, get in action. I mean, like literally before you can talk yourself out of it, begin to have the conversation. You know, in my book, there's and I think I may have covered this briefly the last time, there are 5 steps to having the conversation that you've been avoiding. And Jagan, I know you have a copy of my book. If you could just go through that and just really go through those steps and take it for a test drive and get some victory under your belt. That's what I would suggest to you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Amir.
Sure, no problem. Anything else? Any other challenge?
No, the challenge is I mean, this blueprint, how accurate and how thought out does it need to be? Or is it just, this is what you have, let's go as we change and move?
Yeah, you know, you want to have a blueprint because it's important for you to give this some thought, but recognize that things are going to change. If you're truly creating a transformation, you're going to have changes to this. So it's important to have it as a base, but then what you want to do is you want to review it. The thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to get analysis paralysis where you say, look, my blueprint is not perfect yet. I can't really start doing anything. No, jump in with what you know after you've given this some thought, and then constantly revisit the blueprint, because things will change. There will be key people that you need to influence at certain stages. There will be barriers that will pop up. So you've got to constantly renew this, and it's perfectly fine to start with one that is not totally perfect. Okay?
Absolutely. And I do have one more question. I do have one more question if you
Go ahead.
mind. So the key milestones, I know we've talked about in the past. One of the key things that I learned in the last couple of years is specifically not to focus too far in the distant future as well, but rather have the key things that's right next to you, so you get some quick wins along the way, rather than having too far out of the goal that you can't really see and you can't comprehend where you're going.
Yes.
And the vision of it.
Yeah. So totally great point. So here's what I would say to you is you want to start with the vision, and you want to give some thought to at least those milestones, key milestones along the way. And then you want to focus on what you need to do today. The reason you need to have those milestones is that a lot of times, and I've participated in and facilitated a lot of these strategic planning sessions. Let's say a business has a 5-year vision. And then if I just ask them, so what are some actions we want to take? And we have a 5-year span right in front of us. All the sticky notes and all of this will go in the next 6 months, because we're going to change the world, transform the world in the next 6 months. Well, what are we going to do next in the next 4 years? Well, we don't know, because we're always so clear what we're going to do now and not clear at all what's going to happen. So the benefit of coming up with those milestones to the best of your ability, knowing that they will change, is that you'll get to sort of create some phases for your journey. And then once you have an idea of what those phases look like, then you focus on what's right in front of you. And of course, that's where it's at. You get in action and make it happen.
Oh, that's great insight.
All right. Hey, thank you so much, Jagan. So let me see. We have April with us as well, who volunteered. April, are you there?
I am here. Hello.
Fantastic. So I have to say, thank you so much for agreeing to participate. So what do you got? What as you went through this process, what sort of questions came up for you, and how can I support you?
Okay, so I guess I'm going to address something a little later down on the blueprint, which is what I'm kind of viewing as a barrier right now to the work I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So I just recently started, and I've been a finance person, and I haven't been in HR to date, but I recently went and did some coaching certification and some leadership training on my own And I see a really big need within my organization to kind of instill some of this throughout the culture, mainly because the company's grown a lot, and there are a small number of people that started the company that tend to be the only voices heard.
Okay.
And so you have a lot of other people in the organization a little less willing to step up, be heard, take initiative. And the senior leadership says they want that. And so I'm trying to, and what I'd like to do is kind of transform the culture so that a lot more voices are heard within the organization.
Okay.
My problem is that the very senior leadership, because of a bad experience they had in the past with bringing an external leadership coach in, is kind of putting up a wall in a way. And so I feel like I'm almost having to do this work in secret.
Yes. Yeah, so I completely understand, because for most of my career, I was in manufacturing for 31 years and doing a lot of organizational work. I had to do it in a covert fashion. And so I completely understand. And look, at the end of the day, here's what the situation you're dealing with right now is, that people are bringing the baggage from the past and they're projecting it on you, and it's up to you to show them that this is different. Now, you don't want to do that philosophically, trying to convince them that this is different and all of this, but if they've been part of a program of the month, or they've seen something that failed or whatever, they're constantly dragging that with them. And so, you know, there's a blog post that I wrote about how you can recover from past failures even if it wasn't your own. And so we'll put that in the notes to make sure that you have some key points around how you can overcome some of those stereotypes, if you will, of like, oh yeah, I've seen this movie before, that sort of thing. But the other thing is, look, get into their world, understand what their concerns are, and here again, wrap what they need in what they want. And so understand where they're coming from, instead of trying to push them on what it is they should do, instead of trying to get them to commit because they should. Understand what's holding them back. And this is no different for our bosses than anybody else on the front line. So seek first to understand is what I would say. And I know it can be frustrating.
Yes, it can, because when you see the need and you know the value you can bring, and it goes back to what you're talking about before, about the big vision versus the chunks of time. It's like, I want to do it quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a little bit of impatience.
The thing about it is, you know, again, what's happening at that time is you're making it mean something about you.
Yes.
I seem to have a bad connection here, but you're making it mean something about you, and it's completely natural and it's normal, but it's not about you. So this is not personal. It's not about you. It's about the greater mission, right? Constantly bring yourself back to that, because I know you're committed to it.
Yes. No, that's a good point. I hear you say it all the time, and I think that I follow it, but you're
Awesome.
absolutely right.
Super. So thank you so much. And I've got time for one more, and I'm going to go to Masha. Let me see. First of all, did I pronounce your name correctly? Masha?
Yes, you did. Hi, hear me?
Masha, yes, I can. And I want to thank you for this transformation blueprint you sent me. It is, I know it's your first draft, but it's perhaps one of the best that I've ever seen. It's fantastic.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Really good stuff. So I've got like a couple of minutes for you to kind of, if you could, maybe you can just talk about what your transformation is and what's the one question that you would like to address.
Yeah, sure. So I think, you know, for me, it's always easy for me to put together the plan and start actioning it. And I know if I follow through, it'll happen, and the transformation will happen that I'm trying to, make happen. So the transformation that I'm on right now is a functional transformation for my function, with the changes that we're going through as a company and some of the priorities that are shifting. So for me to make sure that my function is kind of aligned with that shift of priorities, and that we get some of the responsibilities shifted as well to allow us to prioritize those things that we want to prioritize. I think one question that I actually would love to get your view, Amir, on is the most difficult part for me is actually picking the transformation, because there's so many in my mind, you know, when I think about what would I like to see change. So there's this project management initiative that, you know, I would love to take on. And there's this D&I, diversity and inclusion initiative that I'm already part of that I would really love to advance. And it's, you know, so there's a lot of those things, and finding the time for all of them, and also prioritizing. You know, one of them that is perhaps in my circle of influence, which is what we talked about in one of the seminars, is what I'm doing now. So that's I'm picking the one that's within my function. But what about all those other ones that I'm, you know, also passionate about and would love to commit my time to, but they're not necessarily within my direct circle of influence?
Awesome. So here's what I would say to you and to everybody else. Look, this is not abnormal for us to be passionate about so many different topics. And what you want to do is you want to pick one and resist the urge. Now, if you have capacity to deal with the other ones, great. But keep in mind, you're not making this transformation happen by yourself. You're out there trying to get other people enrolled and involved and energized and all of this kind of stuff. So don't pick too many. And what I would say to you is resist the urge to pick too many breakthrough priorities. As we talked about before, there's some things you're trying to maintain, some things you're trying to improve, and some things you are going to do a breakthrough in. And so your breakthrough priorities ought to be just one or two. But here's the good news. Okay, so the good news that might help you actually resist that urge. Many times my experience has been that when I truly pick and focus on one transformation, as a result of making it happen, we end up addressing a lot of the root causes of many of these other issues. For instance, if you are focusing on this transformation in your function, one of the issues might be lack of communication. One of those might be lack of trust. One of those might be that we drag the past and bring it in the future. All of that. If you truly focus on it, instead of just kind of playing whack-a-mole with it, then what you do is once you address that, guess what? The communication issue has far-reaching implications, and it's going to impact some of those other things. Then, so it's kind of the slow, you know, a slow approach is faster sometimes because you get to kind of take a deep dive and address the root causes, and then you'll be able to increase your capacity, and you'll make believers out of other people, and then they will become champions of the other ones. Okay, so resist the urge to take too many is what I would say to you.
Okay, that makes perfect sense, actually. And you know, if I think about all these other ones that I'm passionate about, the common theme is, I'd say, the kind of the silos theme that we have going on. So it makes sense what you're saying, that focusing on one and kind of addressing those issues is going to be the foundation for the other ones as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And again, I apologize I didn't have time to address everybody who wanted to participate, but I'm getting ready to share something with you in a moment that will give you the opportunity to do that. So I'm going to just go ahead and begin to wrap this up. And then at the end, if we have time, we might address a couple of other questions. So again, I sincerely hope that you have found value in this series, and that you have been able to actually embed that into your own conversations, and that it's made a difference for you. We would love to hear from you. We are going to send you a survey by the end of today that we would absolutely love and appreciate for you to fill out. Now, the survey has to do with, first of all, your experience during these webinars, giving us some feedback, but also, just as importantly, we're going to ask you, in what other ways can we serve you? So by the end of today, you will receive the survey. The survey will be anonymous, so please fill it out. And when you complete the survey, you will receive a link to another page. Now, I know we've been sending you to Destined to Thrive page, But this is another page where there are a number of things on this page. The first thing is, what I want to offer each of you is a 30-minute coaching call. Now, this is different than the sort of the prospective client calls that we offer. This is a coaching call that I generally charge about $375 for, and I would love to make that available to you. So when you go there, there's a button for you to push to schedule time on my calendar, and that way we get to deepen these conversations. And whereas I've been talking to a large number of people on these webinars, we get to take a deep dive on what you've got going on and how you can personally bring this into your life. So I just really want to kind of make that available to you and make sure that you get the most out of these conversations. So when you go to that, fill out the survey. When you go to that page, go ahead and schedule time with me so we can take a deeper dive into your situation. The other thing that you will see on that page are a list of offerings that we have. We have basically created a bunch of virtual offerings that we have, some free and some that have some costs associated with them. I know there are a number of organizations that are taking advantage of this opportunity to invest in their people and stuff like that. So depending on where you are, take a look at that as well. The one thing we have decided to go ahead and move forward with is a worldwide book study that we're going to do on a complimentary basis. And so there are a large number of companies that are doing a book study with the Transformative Leader. And this is, I love getting into those conversations. The book has been shipped to over 30 countries. And so we have a large group of people who are going to want to get on this. And so I would encourage you, while you're there on that page, to go ahead and sign up for the book study. It's going to start on April 23rd, and we're going to do them every week for 5 weeks. And we're going to even give you the required reading. Once you sign up for it, you can get a download of the required reading for the second session. The first session doesn't have required reading. The second session will give it to you for free. But then afterwards, if you want to participate, I would encourage you to pick up a copy of the book, either physically or the ebook or audiobook, and so you know where to get that. Now, the other thing that you can do while you're on that page, or at the Destined to Thrive page, is you may have noticed that we have this ebook and a 5-part audio series that you can download and dig into. It just refers to the book, and it just gives you a lot more perspective. So all of this is available to you for free and on those pages. So I would really encourage you to take advantage of those. Now, I have to say that the Destined to Thrive webpage is only going to be up for another week from today. And so the reason for that is, I'm a firm believer, you either take action now or you won't take action. And so you've been participating. I appreciate it. The videos are there, the key points are there, and all kinds of resources. But we're going to leave this up for another week. And if you're going to participate in it and do something with it, I'd encourage you to do that. Now, we may bring this back and offer the content or make the content available in some other forms, but you've got one more week at that website. Otherwise, once again, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your attention. Would love to connect with you on social media, on LinkedIn. We are here to support you, and there are a variety of ways in which we can do that very effectively in a virtual kind of setting. And so please reach out to me personally, set up that time with me, and I would love to hear from you. And otherwise, you know, my wish for you is that you boldly declare, courageously pursue, and abundantly achieve the extraordinary. So I'm going to pause. I think we've got like 1 minute or so, and see if there are any questions or comments that anybody has. You're welcome to put them in the chat box or let us know. So
we have one from Dwayne, and thank you, Dwayne, for saying this. He says, Amir, Naveed, and Nassim, I wanted to thank you very much for providing this webinar series. It is not only helpful, but actionable in shifting our mindset from idea mode into actionable steps for thriving.
Thank you so much, Dwayne. I really appreciate it. And thanks, everybody. And it's truly been an honor to be with you. And I really don't take it lightly that you take the time to join us. I look forward to staying in touch with you. Thank you so much, and all the best.